So hello revolutionaries and welcome back to the Revolution channel. So today we'll be covering the second part of chapter 4 of general psychology, and we'll cover emotions in our today's lesson. So let's start. Emotion is a reaction consisting of subjective cognitive states. Now, before moving on, it says that emotion is a reaction. What is a reaction? Reaction is nothing but let's say that two things interact. That causes a reaction. When you interact with something, it causes a reaction, right? So interaction is basically reaction is basically the interaction of two things, two or more things. They could be the same thing or they could be different things. So emotion is that reaction which consists of subjective cognitive states, physiological reactions and expressive behaviors. Now you might be wondering that what subjective cognitive state is and what is this expressive behaviors, and obviously they haven't explained it in the book either, and that is why I say that all these IGNOU books are really crap, especially the psychology books. I don't know how they make them. So I'll first explain to you what subjective cognitive states mean. So let's break it down into subjective and cognitive. State, I think you understand, state is a condition. So subjective means that it is different for every individual. It is subjected to some specific it is subjected, it means it is subjected to various conditions, and these conditions can be different for each individual. So subjective word is used here to refer that for each individual these conditions can be different. And which conditions can be different? Cognitive states. So it means subjective cognitive states means that for each individual cognitive states can be different. Subjective means different for everyone. You can sum it up as like this, that subjective is different for each individual. And obviously I think you know cognitive, or maybe if you don't, then cognitive means knowledge or mental processes, means basically related to your mind. Cognitive means like all the mental processes or mind related activities that you do. So subjective cognitive state means different mental states. So it is saying that emotion is a reaction that consists of different mental states, and these mental states can be like different for each individual. So that's why they're saying, it's basically saying that emotion is a reaction that consists of mental states. But these mental, by using the word subjective, it means to say that these mental states can be different for each individual. Psychological, now this subjective is actually a word that can be connected with all three of them: cognitive states, physiological reactions and expressive behavior. So I am taking it as that they are saying that each individual has different cognitive states, physiological reactions and expressive behavior, and not just only cognitive states. Understand? Like what I'm trying to say is that the word is written with cognitive state, right? So you might be wondering that they are trying to say that each individual have different cognitive states, but physiological reaction and expressive behavior are all same in everyone, right? But I am taking it as, because it is not very clear, so I am assuming it that subjective is a word which is used for all three of these components. This physiological reaction, cognitive states and expressive behavior. So he's trying to say that every individual has different cognitive states, different physiological reactions and different expressive behavior, and the summing up of all these three components is what creates emotion, is what makes emotion. So cognitive state is mental condition or situation. Now what is expressive behavior? Expressive behavior is nothing, it's very very simple term, very basic term. It refers to non-verbal actions, gestures, postures and facial expressions that convey emotions, feelings and attitudes of a person. If you read it slowly or listen to it slowly again, I think you'll get it. It refers to non-verbal actions, gestures, postures and facial expression. So it's basically your body language, okay, which includes your facial expression, the way you sit, the way you move, the way you do anything like without speaking, okay. So all those actions that you do without speaking, means speech is not included in it. So everything else that you do rather than speaking, of course, if you deduct speech, everything else that you do is considered under expressive behavior. It includes the way you sit, it includes the way you move, or the way you, or the kind of faces that you make, okay. So that is what expressive behavior means, behavior that express your inner feelings without speaking, of course, because that will obviously directly express your behavior or your inner feelings. Now moving on, They involve three major components. First is physiological changes, which physiological changes basically obvious to everyone. In fact, I mentioned it in the previous part. What physiological changes are nothing but bodily changes. So it's even saying further on that physiological changes within our bodies, that is it, this hyphen here means that it is showing what are the examples of physiological changes. These are shifts in heart rate, blood pressure, and so on. Subjective cognitive states, which is the personal experience we label as emotions. So personal experience, obviously personal experience is different for every individual, right? So this is what it is referring to, that the personal experience of each individual. And third is expressive behavior, that is outward signs of these internal reactions. So outward signs that depict what you are feeling inside, or what's happening inside you. Emotion is associated with mood, temperament, personality, disposition, and motivation. Now obviously I won't go into detail what each of these are, because that would be a complete separate topic in itself. So you just need to understand the basic meaning of what emotion is associated with. It is associated with your mood, like your current feeling. Mood is your current state of emotion, you can say. Mood depicts what your current state of emotion is. Temperament, the emotions that you usually go through. Temperament can be summed up as that the one or more types of emotions that you usually go through or that you usually perceive. That is temperament. Personality is it is made up of emotions, and it is much more than emotions. Actually, personality is a rather complex component. I don't know if I've explained it previously also, but personality is basically how you interact with everyone. Okay, that is what your personality is. Now temperament can be is your inner feelings also, but personality does not actually have much to do with your inner feelings. Personality is what you show to the outside world. Let's say that you are very 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 angry about something, but whenever you meet something, you suddenly become a very innocent and decent person. You talk to them in a very polite manner, so the other person will perceive your personality to be to be gentle personality. Okay, but your temperament is anger. Your temperament is being angry. I mean, you could be angry inside, but for some specific reason, I don't know, it could be any reason. Maybe that person is your senior, or maybe he's an elder, or he's a very close relative of your father, or something like that. So for some specific reason, you are being forced to talk to him politely, but inside you are feeling anger, and not at that person, of course, maybe at some other person or something else, and you get angered easily, you can say. So your temperament is that of an angry person, of an irritated person, but your personality is different. Your personality is that of a polite person. Okay. And disposition, motivation we've already discussed, and disposition, I don't know what it means really, because I didn't bother to check any of them. Mood, temperament, personality, I just made them up right now, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right about most of them, or all of those that I've said at least. Now emotions can be considered as thoughts that you cannot identify. Okay, so this is an important line. They're saying that emotions can be considered as those thoughts which you are not able to identify, like you don't know what kind of thought it is. Okay, so you're feeling like you want to murder someone, or you want to beat someone up. So if we hadn't labeled it up as anger, then you wouldn't have known what's happening with you, right? You wouldn't know what exactly it is. You would just feel like you're burning up from inside and you want to hit someone, but you wouldn't know what exactly it is. Okay, before we had named these emotions, we had specified their symptoms and then named them, you wouldn't have known what exactly it is. So emotions are basically those thoughts which you cannot identify, which you don't know what they are. For instance, when you feel something, it must be that you are thinking about something unconsciously. Okay, it happens a lot. Like let's say, imagine you had a slight accident in the morning, and you had a grumpy mood all day. Even while the teacher was teaching, or your friends were trying to talk to you, you would jab at them, you would get irritated easily. And even though they didn't do anything, and even though you have forgotten about the morning's incident, but somewhere deep inside your mind, somewhere in the subconscious mind, it is still alive. You're still thinking about that incident and getting angry at that person who caused you to have an accident. Okay, so this is how emotions work most of the times. Like it's working in the subconscious mind, somewhere deep inside, and you don't actually realize it until it comes to the fore and takes a form of some kind of action. I don't think you got what I just said, but you'll realize it as we cover up this chapter. We can feel them in our body as tingles, hot spots, and muscular tension. I'm sure you must have felt these kind of things, like when you're super angry, you feel like some kind of shivering or some kind of chilling inside you, right? Like your hands start burning up, or maybe they start, tingling, that I want to beat someone up. Come on, I want to beat someone, just fetch me someone. And or maybe when you're really sad, you feel like your heart is being plunged from inside, or something like that. Like different people have different symptoms, I guess. Emotions involve cognitive aspects, but the physical sensation is what makes them really different. So emotions obviously means mental aspects. It means emotions are in the brain, emotions in the mind. Okay, but the physical sensations, that the actual sensations we feel. I mean, emotions don't have a physical concept, right? You cannot touch emotions, you cannot feel them. Not feel them externally, but you feel them inside yourself. You feel them inside your body, right? Even though they do not have any physical state, but you can still feel them. Even though they are supposed to be only in your mind, but you can still actually feel their impact on your body. So this is what makes emotions truly a psychological phenomena. Like if a person is depressed for a long time, the depression is inside his head, so that it shouldn't do anything with his body, right? It shouldn't have any impact on his body. But over long terms of depression, the person can have like serious impacts on his body, which can even lead to cancer in some rare cases. So you can clearly see, like, this is a mental process, this is a mental phenomena which is having an impact on the physical body as well. Thus, emotions are important, and as students of psychology, we need to focus on this concept. Emotion has been derived from a Latin word emovere, that means stirred up state. It means like a jumbled up state, stirred up state, like as if you've been aroused and everything is messy around you, don't know what to do. That is what means stirred up state. There are various definitions of emotion that are discussed as follows. Now, these are several definitions once again by different psychologists. Feast and Rosenberg defined emotions as brief, acute changes in consciousness experience and physiology that occur in response to a personally meaningful situation. So they said that emotions are brief, that is short-term, acute changes, they are major changes in consciousness experience, in your consciousness. Like, how do I define consciousness experience? Consciousness experience is basically all the things that you are doing with your mind, like you are thinking about something and then doing it, right? It's not like everything is happening unconsciously. So all those things that you are doing while wake up, okay, while you are awake, while you are aware of these things, that is your conscious experience. So this is a short term and a large amount of change in the things you do and your body, in your physiology, that occur, which happens in response to some personal situation, that some kind of personal situation that has a meaning to you, that is connected to you. Okay, so imagine that you are just doing your work, imagine that you are mopping the floor. Okay, now that is a conscious experience. Mopping the floor is a conscious experience. Let's say you are working in a shop and you are mopping the floor, and suddenly your co-worker drops a glass or breaks the glass. So suddenly you might panic, or you may get angry, and your body will stiffen up, okay, and your brain will send angry signals to you, and body will stiffen up. So this would be a brief change, of course. You wouldn't stay angry for him for the rest of your life, or for several hours, might be you won't be, because obviously it's not your fault and you're not going to suffer because of it. So but there would be an acute change, right? There would be a sudden change, and there would be very high quality of change, high level of change, because all your focus, all your attention would be fixed towards that person and that broken china and that broken glass, right? And so that is why it is an acute change, and obviously it would be brief, and you would you were doing some specific work, that is your conscious experience. You were doing some specific work, and suddenly you leave that work. There's a change in consciousness experience. It means that because what you were doing, you suddenly leave it and you focus on something else. So there is there is a change in your conscious experience now, and your physiology, your body, of course, because your body stiffens up, like I told you. And it is in response to a personally meaningful situation. So let's say that co-worker is your friend, and now you know that he has broken the glass, so he will be scolded, and you feel personally bad about it. Okay, you feel bad that your co-worker will be scolded. Maybe that's why you suddenly, your emotions suddenly changed. Because if you didn't care about that person, you wouldn't give a damn that he broke the glass, so what, it isn't related to me, right? But let's say that person is your friend, so now you will feel bad, like you will feel angry or you will feel sad, right? So this would be an emotional change inside you. Now the others are similar explanations. You can read the explanation by yourself. I'll start now. Okay, so I've like sorted out several definitions of emotion. So emotions involve cognitive aspects, but the physical sensation, yeah, we've done this. Emotion is a change in consciousness experience, physiological arousal, or end in cognitive processes that is visibly expressed on the face or on the posture of an individual, that is a result of some situation that is important for the individual. So this is my definition of emotion. Of course it's self-made, so I've written, I'll provide them to you in the notes, of course, so I don't need to repeat it again. One of the key points that can be highlighted in the above definitions, that there is a change. Of course there is a change, and this change can be in the consciousness experience, or it could be in the terms of physiological arousal, or it could be in the cognitive processes. Okay, so changes can also be in the visible expression that is displayed on the face or in the posture of the individual. So changes are in the visible expressions. Obviously you'll suddenly put up a surprised face when you suddenly hear the sound of that breaking glass. You'll suddenly put up a surprised face, right? So there is a change in your visible expression, and there would be change in your posture, because you would suddenly stiffen up and turn your head and look in that direction. So there would be change in your posture as well. Okay, so now for example, a parent might display emotions of happiness as his or her child receives a gold medal. Okay, now moving on to types of emotions. So they're saying that there are only two types of emotions: basic emotions and self-conscious emotions. Now what are basic emotions and self-conscious emotions? They are not really very difficult to understand. It's very easy concept, and I made it even easier for you. So basic emotions are a set of emotions that commonly appear in all human beings. So basic emotions are your simply basic emotions, all those emotions that everyone feels, which are anger, disgust, happiness, fear, sadness, and surprise. Now you must be wondering that these are the only things that are emotions. So what's left in self-conscious emotions, right? So now we'll obviously discuss what's left in self-conscious emotions. So these emotions can be stated to be innate and are shared by all human beings. So like they are inbuilt emotions, and they are inbuilt inside each human being. So each human being experiences these emotions. The emotions of fear, the emotion of sadness, surprise, disgust, anger. All of you feel that, of course. And though human beings can experience a broad range of emotions, researchers on emotions have indicated that all the emotions are an outcome of combinations of certain basic emotions. So there could be some different kind of emotions too, like you feel cringe is an emotion, right? So cringe is basically an emotion between disgust, or it might be between anger and disgust. It could be something of that. So according to scientists, all the new emotions or all the other emotions are basically a mix-up of, or a combination of, these basic emotions. You can imagine it to be like there are 3 or 4, I don't know how many, there were some primary colors, and all the other colors are a combination of the primary colors. So further, Charles Darwin also proposed that the actions that arise as a result of emotions or emotional behavior are innate in nature, and similar emotional states are expressed in terms of similar facial expressions across culture. So they're saying that almost all type of people display same expressions during that particular emotion. So like when you're angry, the expressions that will be on your face, the same expressions will be on any other person's face. It doesn't matter from where they are. Like the expression you show while you are angry, your father might have the same expression when he is angry, your mother might have the same expression, your neighbor might have the same expression, or your very far relatives or distant friends would also have the same expressions, or similar to that, those expressions that you show when being angry. Okay, so this is what Darwin said. In fact, even persons with visual impairment may display similar facial expressions even if they have never observed emotional expression in others. So they're saying even people who have never seen these expressions, like blind people who have never seen those kinds of expression, even they will show the same expression. So these expressions are inherent, they are inbuilt in all the human beings. Okay. So well, alright, now I'll read them from my notes what basic emotions are. To sum it up, basic emotions, these are a set of emotions, common emotions that are innate and shared by all human beings. Example: anger, disgust, happiness, fear, sadness and surprise. All emotions are an outcome of combinations of certain basic emotions. There are emotions that are influenced by the norms and practices of the cultures. So basically there are some emotions that are you can say like specific to a particular region or specific to some particular kind of culture. Now let's discuss what self-conscious motions are. So self-conscious motion, these motions are associated with how individuals judge themselves and their actions in relation to social and cultural norms, values and expectations. Okay, like how they evaluate themselves in accordance to their society, and the emotions that arise from this evaluation, from this subjectation to societal norms, is what is known as self-conscious emotion. Now let me give you an example, then you'll be able to understand it more easily. And these are pride, shame, guilt. So like some people take pride, you can say like there's a killer association. Okay, so the people around him, the society around him are all killers, so that guy will take pride in killing someone, and killing someone successfully, he will take pride. While there is some other noble society like our society or any normal society, and the people around him are all normal peace loving people. So if that person doesn't fight, if he lives a simple and a noble, a good life, a polite life, then he will take pride in that, and the people around him will take pride in that we are a peace loving society. Okay, so both are the same feelings. The emotion is pride, but it changes according to the situation and according to your society. Okay, all right, so these are self-conscious emotions. Now there are 6 main components of emotional process or emotion process. Okay, so emotion or the process of feeling some emotion consists of 6 components, 6 main components. And what are these components? So these components are cognitive appraisal, subjective experience, thought and action tendencies, internal body changes, facial expressions and response to emotion. Alright, so these are your 6 components that are related to emotion process. Now we'll obviously discuss them in detail. So what is cognitive appraisal? Cognitive appraisal basically refers to mental evaluation or assessment of an event or situation to determine its personal significance is meaning. So it basically means to evaluate any situation or any condition through your mind mentally, like you mentally think of some situation or some condition. All right, and then you try to associate it with yourself, that how is it related to you, how is that feel, how is that situation or how is that circumstance related to you. That is what cognitive appraisal is. It basically means mentally evaluating a situation and then deciding how it made you feel emotionally. Okay, so let's say that I've given a whole big example of it to help you understand it through the notes. I've given a very good and lengthy example. So for example, let's say that you are from India and were watching a football match between Brazil and Argentina lost, and you were supporting Argentina because your favorite player Messi is from that team. Then your mind will automatically process the loss of Argentina as your own personal loss. Okay, because and it will release signals that you must feel bad or sad. Like if Argentina lost, then your mind will start sending you signals that you should feel bad, that you should be sad about it, because that is what you should feel or you're supposed to feel as the team that you were supporting, or as the team that in which your favorite player was in lost. So his loss would be considered, your mind will feel his loss as your own loss, because your mind was in support of him, your mind felt like the same as him. Okay, your mind will feel the same as him, like his loss and your loss are the same things. So now moving on to subjective experience. What is subjective experience? Okay, so subjective experience is basically just. So moving on to what subjective experience is now. Subjective experience, again here subjective means like different for each individual. So subjective experience is the actual realistic feeling that you get inside when some kind of emotion overpowers or you, or some kind of you feel some kind of specific emotion. So the actual internal feeling that only you can feel, that is what is experience, and that is subjective experience, because according to them it's different for every person. So some person might feel tingles inside them when they are sad, some person might feel a kind of deep plunging sensation, some person might feel something else like a throbbing sensation. So it's basically different for each person. Their emotions feel different, and that is why this is subjective experience. Third is thought and action tendencies. Now, thought tendencies refer to the way we think or process things during a particular emotion. Okay, so now this might be little something like it might take you back to the first point, cognitive appraisal, but this is actually different, and how it is different now we'll see. For example, when we are extremely happy, we may perceive some individuals of our life, some incidents of our life which were harmful to us, or made us feel sad, as having some hidden meaning that will eventually turn out to do us good, and vice versa. So you're basically saying that when you feel happy, you suddenly start taking everything as a good thing, everything, even the bad things that otherwise would have done harm to you, or would otherwise had been displeasing to you, would suddenly start feeling that, oh, it's all right, it doesn't matter, it's okay. So you will suddenly start feeling that everything around you is really beautiful, it's really comfortable, and it's really like all those kind of happy feelings you'll start getting. Okay, so these are thought tendencies. They refer to the way we think or process things during a particular emotion. So when you are on a height of a particular emotion, then the way you interpret things, then the way you process things, that is what thought and action tendencies are. The way you this is only thought tendency. Okay, this is only thought tendency that I'm explaining up until now, that the way you start thinking of other things during a particular emotion. Now when you're angry, you may start thinking bad things about everyone. You may start suddenly like people do all kinds of things, okay, but then you'll suddenly start focusing on the bad things only. So thought tendency would become negative. That is the difference between the happy tendency and the angry tendency, positive tendencies and negative tendencies. These are only thought tendencies up until now. Now next we'll discuss what action tendency is. Action tendencies refer to the way people act or take action under the influence of a particular emotion. So until now we had held ourselves to only thinking about it, to our only mental processes, but the moment we take action on it, upon our emotions, that becomes action tendencies. For example, when we are angry, we may start quarreling with people, misbehaving, or picking up fights for no good reason. Okay, so like you are angry with one person, but you may end up quarreling or having fights with some other person, and then someone else, right? So this is action tendency. Or when you are happy, then you might even start talking pleasantly and in a very good manner even to your enemies. Okay, so this is like the things we think and the action we do under the influence of some particular emotion are referred to as thought and action tendencies. Now comes the internal body changes. So these are the physiological reactions, mainly the autonomic nervous system, that takes place during an emotional elevation. It could be changes in heartbeat, perspiration, breathing rate, etc. So what it means here is basically that these are the your bodily reactions, that the reactions that happen inside your body, these are considered as internal body changes. So all those reactions that happen inside your body, these are internal body reactions. Okay, facial expressions is obviously like it's also very obvious what facial expression. This is related to the changes in the facial landmarks like cheeks, lips, and nose. So any change in the positioning or in the movement of your in the condition of your cheeks, lips, and nose is considered as a form of facial expression. Next is response to emotion. So this is mostly, though not always, the last stage of any emotional process. It refers to the process of reacting to one's own emotions in order to cope with them. So now it basically means that how you react to your own emotions, your own emotions, sorry. So it basically means how are you reacting to your own emotions, and then what are you doing to cope with them. So if you are very angry and then you finally realize that I am angry and this is doing no good, so what actions do you take, what kind of thoughts do you start thinking in order to alleviate that angry feeling? That is what response to emotion is. Okay, let's say that you are feeling really happy. In some other case, let's say, take it as that you are feeling really happy, and then you start talking with strangers, and maybe you start behaving in a really, like, crazy way. You start dancing on open street. So you need to take care of those conditions also. You need to tell yourself that, okay, I am happy, but I need to control myself. Okay, like you suddenly start smiling at strangers, so strangers will feel that way. They will feel awkward and like they might feel uncomfortable. So you'll put a check on yourself. You'll say, okay, I am happy, but I need to control myself. So this is the last stage, that is response to your own emotions. Any emotion is as a result of the above 6 components. Now there are 3 main functions of emotion. Now we've come to functions of emotion because emotions are important. Okay, emotions. Okay, so now what are the functions of our emotions? After functions, we'll obviously discuss the theories of emotions. There are a few theories. I guess there are 1, 2, and 3, and 4. There are 5 theories. They are not very big. I've just summed them up pretty well. So let's start with the functions of emotions first. So what are the functions of emotions? Now there are 3 main functions of an emotion. And what are these functions? These functions are, first is preparing an individual for action. So emotion prepares an individual or any person for action. How? Emotions, they serve as a link between an individual situation and his or her reaction to it. So emotions are like they are a link between what your situation is and what you will do to resolve it or to make it better. Okay, so the link between them is emotion. So I'll give you an example. Thus they help in deciding what action to take in a particular situation. So I'll give you an example for it. So like they say that, let's imagine that a person is crossing the road. Alright, a person is crossing a road and suddenly a truck is coming from the wrong side, and the truck, you can say that it's pretty obvious that there will be an accident. So now there's a situation right here, right? I mean, the person will obviously have to take some kind of action. So his emotion, now there could be 2 types of emotion. There could be an emotion that he's pretty much scared. He's so he's scared. Okay, he's scared now that he will get under the truck and he will just die. So he will take either of 2 actions. Either he'll quickly take action and jump to some side to avoid it, or he'll become so frozen that he'll just stay there in that frozen condition and the truck will run him over. Okay, so your emotion will act as a link between it. Now imagine another situation that the truck is again approaching that kid and the kid isn't afraid of it. He doesn't know that it will cause him pain, hurt or death. So he has no fear. Okay, he has, let's imagine that he has no emotion of fear. So he wouldn't care about it until the truck will run him over and he will feel all that pain, or maybe he'll die. So he wouldn't care about it. So emotion, you see how emotion acted as a link between the situation and the action required to be taken. In the same way, it's a very obvious example for this would be like when your teachers beat you. Okay, so your teachers are, let's say that you didn't finish your homework and your teacher didn't do anything about it. Your teacher didn't say anything to you about it. So it will eventually become a habit. Okay, there is no emotion in here. The teacher didn't say you anything. So your situation is that you didn't finish the homework and there is no emotion. So obviously there would be no reaction. I mean, the teacher didn't say anything to you. She didn't beat you. She didn't scold you. She didn't do anything about it. So there is no emotion, and thus there would be no reaction to it. Okay, there would be no reaction, because then you will continue messing up your homework. You will not do your homework ever. Okay, because there's no punishment, there's nothing if you don't do your homework, so you will skip your homework each time. But now let's add some emotion into it. You didn't finish your homework, your teacher got angry, she thrashed you, she beat you up, or maybe she called your parents and they also scolded you. So now you're feeling very bad and you're feeling sad and depressed and afraid. You're afraid of the punishment. So now an emotional concept has come here, and then you will then there will be a reaction. You will start completing your homework, or you will tell them the reason why you couldn't complete your homework, or you try to complete your homework from next time. Okay, so this is how the concept of emotion created a reaction to your situation, and this is how it prepared you for action. The action is the completion of homework, and the emotion was the catalyst that prepared you for that action. Okay, the second point is in shaping the future behavior of an individual. We learn from situations according to the emotions experienced by us in that situation. Okay, so we learn from any situation. I mean, we learn according to what emotional experience we had from that situation. Okay, so let's say that you are walking on a very dangerous slide, or you are walking on a very thin strip of wood. Okay, you are balancing yourself on a thin strip of wood, and you successfully passed it. So next time you will feel a little heightened. You will think that I can easily pass it. This is not a big deal, and you will try to cross it again and again until, let's say, that one day you suddenly falls down and you broke your ankle or you broke your foot. Then an emotional experience is created with it of fear that you can even fall down. So next time either you won't do it, or you will be more cautious while doing it, because an emotional experience has become attached with that situation that you can fall down and hurt yourself. Another example is we learn to avoid situations that evoke negative emotions. In short, we learn to avoid harmful situations. So this was a harmful situation. Next time you'll learn to avoid it. How? By either being more cautious, or by leaving that act completely. Then now the third is help in effective interaction with others. So it helps you in effectively interacting with others. Emotions communicated via verbal and non-verbal communications may help individuals interact with each other more efficiently, as emotions act as signals. So obviously emotions will help you more interact with the other person in a much better way, right? And how would that be? That would be like obviously, like whenever you're talking to someone, you change your expressions, you change your emotions. Okay, sometimes you might be happy about something, and then other time you start arguing with that person about something, or the person tells you about something and you suddenly feel sad. So it brings a kind of, you can say, spice into the interaction, into the communication. So emotions are basically the spices of communication. If you just keep on talking like two people are talking emotionless, no facial expressions, no feelings, so how would that feel? That would be like a conversation between two robots. Okay, nobody would feel good about that, and the people obviously wouldn't want to talk with each other again. They obviously wouldn't have the conversation again, right? So this is now why emotions are necessary. So now we'll move on to our theories of emotion. Okay, so now back to our theories of emotions. First is the James Lange theory. So the James Lange theory, what is it about? I'm not reading from the book, I'll read from my own text. So you can read the book obviously, but I'll be explaining from my own text. So the theory states that emotions are experienced by individuals due to the physiological changes. So it's basically saying that when there are certain reaction or certain changes in our body, only then we feel emotions. So it's not vice versa. It's not like there are emotions and then we feel bodily changes. It's the bodily changes first and then we feel emotions. Okay, so this is what the theory says. The emotions experienced by an individual can be termed as reaction or response to the bodily changes that occur as a result of certain external events and situations. So they're basically saying that emotions are the result of bodily changes and not bodily changes are the result of emotions. Okay, so this is basically like a reverse theory, you can say, that emotions experienced by an individual, they can be said to be a reaction or response to the body change happening with the individual. So it's basically saying like I feel like my heart is beating faster, so my brain will react to my beating heart, to my fast beating heart, and then it will create an emotion of fear or sadness or something like that. The theory has been criticized because in certain situations, emotions may be experienced even before the physiological reactions are experienced. So this is what we were talking about. It in many cases it can be like first you feel the emotions and then bodily changes happen, and in many cases there can be no bodily change but you will still feel the emotion, right? Further, some of the emotional experiences may not occur as a result of physiological arousal. Thus, it can be said that physiological changes are not as such sufficient in order to elicit emotional reaction. So basically what we mean here is that in fact bodily changes are not so important, or are not completely needed, are not desperately needed in order to create an emotion. Emotions can happen without bodily reactions as well, and emotions can happen before the body reaction, or before any bodily change, okay, before any physical change. So that is why this theory was criticized. This theory was termed as wrong. So next is your Cannon-Bard theory. This theory assumes that a same nerve stimulus, like there's a particular kind of nerve, okay, and there's a kind of stimulation in that nerve, and this nerve, this stimulation emerges from thalamus. Thalamus is a gland inside our body, and it produces physiological arousal. Physiological means bodily or physical arousal, as well as emotional experiences at the same time. So it's basically saying that bodily physical changes and emotional arousal both happen at the same time. So it's basically saying that we feel the emotion and our body change, they all happen at the same time, and they happen because they come from the same nerve, and this nerve is from the thalamus. This nerve is found in the thalamus. So when an emotion producing stimulus is perceived by an individual, so it basically says when a situation happens or when some kind of circumstances happen that should provoke an emotion inside you, a signal is sent by thalamus. So they're saying that at that time a signal is sent by thalamus, that gland, simultaneously to the autonomic nervous system, to your autonomic nervous system. And what is the autonomic nervous system? The autonomic nervous system is that nervous system which takes involuntary actions, which is responsible for your sudden actions, or unthought, like the actions that you haven't thought about previously, like they are involuntary action, they happen very suddenly. So that those actions are related to your involuntary nervous system, or where were we? Just a second. Or your autonomic nervous system. And they're saying that both these stimulus, both the emotion and that bodily change, both these signals emerge from that very same nerve. And these signals are given by thalamus. So that nerve is in somewhere inside thalamus. That produces the visceral reaction and the cerebral cortex regarding the emotional experience. So what is visceral reaction? Visceral reaction is a visceral reaction. It refers to an immediate and automatic psychological response to a stimulus often associated with intense emotion. So visceral reaction is nothing but an automatic response to any stimulus creating agent. To like any stimulus, I think I've already explained what stimulus is many times previously. Stimulus is anything that causes a reaction within you, that causes a stimulation with you. So if any kind of such circumstance or such thing happens, a visceral reaction is produced. And this visceral reaction is produced by the thalamus, and this visceral reaction is basically at physical level, and then there is an emotional reaction. So visceral reaction, emotional reaction are basically two different things. Now our third is the Schechter-Singer theory. My pet is really disturbing me right now. Shit. Come on Jenny, get away from me. So now comes the Schechter-Singer theory. Oh, fuck. Just a second, I need to hold it. Alright, so we were at our Schechter-Singer theory. This theory is based on the belief that emotions are determined by an individual based on his physical feelings. Oh, she's again disturbing me. What the heck? Okay, so Schechter-Singer theory says, that our beliefs that emotions are determined by an individual based on his physiological or physical feelings and how he or she interprets them according to their specific environment, like their feelings at that time. So emotion is determined. It's not like we feel emotion because of this, or emotion comes first or feelings come first. There's no concept like that. In this theory they are saying that how we determine what kind of emotion is it. I mean the same emotion can be accompanied with the same bodily changes, right? For example, let me give you an example. I'll give you a little lengthy example. For example, a teacher is approaching a student, and as the teacher starts nearing him, to reach near him, he starts perspiring and his heartbeat increases. Now this is a physiological reaction, okay, and this particular reaction can be attributed to two different types of emotions. First is fear and second is excitement. Now physical changes are both same, but emotions are of two different types. Now his brain will decide now, okay, so his brain has received signal from the body that the body is changing like this, and now according to the bodily changes, according to the physiological changes, his brain will decide what kind of emotion it is, and his brain will decide it how, not just by bodily changes, because by physiological changes it can be divided into two different emotions, on fear and excitement. So how will his brain decide which one is it? It will interpret the situation, it will interpret the bodily reactions according to the situation or according to the circumstance or environment he is in. Okay, so now his brain decides which emotion it is based on his cognitive processing. Cognitive processing means mental processing or thoughtful processing just of his environment and situation. Let's say that his situation is that he had recently given a test and its results are out now. So his brain will interpret the teacher approaching him is for the results of the test. Now again there are two situations. First is that the student had prepared really well for the test and he is of the opinion, let's imagine two situations here, that in first situation the student had prepared really well for the examination and he is also of the opinion that he also performed very well in the exam. So in this situation his brain will interpret the physiological responses to excitement, that he's and believe that the teacher is probably approaching him to announce his brilliant results. So in this situation his brain will interpret is that the teacher is probably just approaching me for my for congratulating me or giving me my results, which would be brilliant. So he would be excited. So his brain will tell him that you are excited, that this perspiration, this heartbeat is related to excitement. But let's say that there is a second situation. In the second situation the student did not have enough time to prepare well and believes that he or she performed very poorly in the test. In this situation his brain will interpret the physiological responses to fear and speculate that the teacher is probably approaching him to give a scolding or punish him or ridicule him. Okay, so his brain received a physiological response, and this physiological response can be of two different emotions. So his brain interpreted the physiological response in accordance to his environment, his situation, and then it decided which kind of emotion it is. Okay, so it's that simple. Or maybe he simply has a crush on the teacher. This is also a scenario. I mean, this can be a situation, right? That's why maybe he started perspiring and his heart started beating fast. So now let's move on to our fourth, I think, opponent process theory. This theory states that an emotional reaction to a stimulus is followed automatically by an opposite reaction. Okay, so we are really low. I mean, this is where I don't know if you guys have the book or you don't have it. I mean, you must have the book, right? Anyways, here's the book. So now we're covering opponent process theory. Sorry, I had scrolled up a bit and didn't realize it. So this theory states that an emotional reaction to a stimulus is followed automatically by an opposite reaction. So they're saying that if you feel sorry for something, then at the same time you're also feeling angry at that person, or maybe whatever the opposite reaction for that could be. So you basically feel two different kind of emotions at the very same time to the same stimulus. At the same time you feel two opposite reactions. Okay, so now this might be a little hard to take in, but it is actually true. I mean, you basically feel several emotions at the same time, right? There's nothing like a specific certain emotion. Like when you're feeling sad, you're not just feeling sad, it is also accompanied by some other emotions as well, right? By an opposite reaction, and repeated or long exposure to that stimulus causes the initial reaction to weaken and the opponent process or opposite reaction to strengthen. So what it's saying is that when you feel two kinds of emotion at the same time, right? First is your initial emotion, and second is your opposite emotion. So if you keep on getting if you keep on interacting with that same stimulus, so after some time, over a period of time, over a long period of time, you can say your first emotion, which was your initial emotion, it will weaken gradually, and the other emotion which was in the starting, the opposite emotion, that will become stronger. Okay, so let's say that your son did very bad in the exam. Okay, so now you're feeling sad and angry. So let's say that at first you are feeling more angry, you're feeling angry, so angry is the dominative emotion, you can say, and sad is the, you can say, like the background emotion. It's in the background, you're not actually very aware of that emotion right now. So your son starts repeating this thing. So he each time he brings his tests, he gets low marks, and again the same situation happens. So eventually you will stop feeling angry, and the sad emotion will take over. You'll suddenly start feeling sad for your son, that even he might be feeling sad or shameful about himself. He might be feeling humiliated, and I should do something for my son to improve him. So in the starting you were feeling angry that he didn't perform well, he didn't do well, he doesn't studies well. But after some time you suddenly start feeling sympathy, you start feeling sad for your son, that it might not be his fault. Maybe he really cannot, maybe he really does try hard, but still he's not able to perform well. So you will start feeling sad for that for your son. So it's the same thing, it's the same stimulus, but after some time your opposite reaction takes over your initial reaction, or your opposite emotion takes over your initial emotion. Now finally, lastly, our cognitive appraisal theory of emotion. What is cognitive appraisal theory of emotion? This theory states that the emotions experienced are an outcome of the appraisals of the information that is received from the environment and from within the body. So it's basically saying that emotions experienced are made up of both the things: the information that we receive from the environment and the information that we receive from our own body. These two things make up emotions. Further, the past experiences and dispositions enable to react in certain manner, as well as consideration with regard to the possible consequences of an emotional action, also play a role in the appraisal process. So it's not very tough actually, just the language is a little bit tough. So what they're saying is that your previous information, that how you behaved under this particular circumstance and what it led to. So your past experience of a particular situation and your current feeling, your current bodily feeling, these are what give rise to a particular emotion. Okay, so let's say that your boss was making a really angry face, but he suddenly announced a really good thing. He suddenly changed his face and announced, "Oh my man, I was just joking, you got a promotion." Okay, so your heart was beating fast at that time. Okay, you were feeling really nervous, and suddenly, and your boss's expressions were also like this. So you received outside information from your boss expression that he is feeling angry, and your brain also received some information from your body that this is an emotion, this is an emotion of fear. So next time also the same thing happens. Suppose next time also same thing happens, that you are receiving information from outside that your boss is again looking angry and looking like that, and you again start feeling like, you again start feeling a little bit of fear that your boss might say something to you. Maybe he's angry about something. So your brain is again receiving the exact same messages that he was receiving last time. Okay, because the body reaction will be the same according to the theory. The body reaction would again be the same. So your brain is receiving the same set of instructions, the same responses, the same stimulation. So it will now interpret the situation differently. However, it will interpret the situation from your previous experience. It will say that last time I received these same reactions, but the boss was actually happy. So this time also the boss might actually be happy. Okay. So somewhere inside your brain will tell you that the situation might be different, your boss might be happy, but still you will feel fear. You will feel the reaction, the emotion of fear. Why the fear of emotion? Why the emotion of fear? Because both the signals are the same. The signals are not different. Okay, if the signal changes, then the emotion will change. The situation could turn out to be different. I mean, somewhere deep inside your brain is thinking that maybe the situation will turn out to be different, but on the surface on the actual surface, at least, your brain thinks that the boss might be angry. It might not be the same thing all the time. So you're still feeling fear. So both the reactions, both the stimulations are same as previously. So the past experience and dispositions enable to react in certain manner. So you will react in a certain manner. You will again try to please your boss. You will try to make him happy, just like you did in the previous situation, let's say. Or like take example of a growing kid. So a growing kid doesn't know much about emotions and how to react in society. So let's say that he is getting scolded for the first time, okay, for the very first time in his life. So he observes his father's behavior, his father's expression, and the next time then his father forms these kinds of expressions and manners, he will realize that his father is about to beat him, and then he will feel the emotion of fear, or maybe like something similar emotions, maybe of guilt and something like that. And so he will act in accordance to those emotions. He will act according to those emotions. He will act according to his past experience in that situation. So he will act in a certain manner to make his father happy, or maybe to try to avoid the situation. Certain manner, as well as consideration with regard to the possible consequences of an emotional action also. And also your brain will interpret that what kind of emotion should we apply so that the situation improves. Now let's imagine that your father is angry and you also apply the emotion. I mean, different individuals can have different emotions in the same situation, alright. So let's say that you apply the emotion of anger when your father is angry, so the quarrel will only increase, right? But you apply the emotion of fear, of guilt, of shame, so father's anger might die down, right? So this is what cognitive appraisal theory of emotion says. It says that the information that we receive from outside and the information that we receive from our body and from our past experiences, they help us to interpret the outcome of an emotion. This helps us to interpret what kind of emotion should be considered in this situation, or what kind of emotion should we use or we apply. I mean, it's basically our brain. We cannot choose what emotion to apply. Our brain chooses what kind of emotion should we take or should we apply. So the theory also focuses on the reappraisal of the situation that evoked emotion. So the theory also says that we should, when a student is told that he or she is being called by the principal, the student will experience apprehension. But when the principal informs the student has been selected for education, so take this example from the book, that a student is called to the principal. So at first he's very scared, he's very afraid that the principal will probably rusticate me, he will say something bad, or he will probably call my parents or something like that, something bad will happen. But the principal actually announces that you're getting a prize, you're getting a reward, man, or you're getting some kind of school trips, some special privileges. So now he will reassess that situation when the principal called him, and now for the same situation he will start thinking, he will start having good feelings. So this cognitive appraisal theory also works on the reappraisal of the situation. So this is it for today's video and today's chapter. Now if you didn't understand anything or want me to repeat anything or explain again, just write it down in the comment section. I'll create a separate video for it explaining that thing again. And if you want me to make a specific video on any topic, any chapter from your courses of any class, except for science and maths of 11th and above, I'll make a video on that too. So just write it all in the comment section. Till then, see you.